Hi, Deep. Thank you so much for joining us today here on the Voice of Champions series. It is such an honor to have you here. I am, a huge fan of the work that you're doing. And in this series, we're really trying to give you guys a platform, you who have been on the ground and doing this work and have such a clear voice and sound in menstrual hygiene and women-based issues. So I appreciate your time here today. I'm going to jump straight into question one, especially for those who might not know you, and ask you, who is Deep and why are you so passionate about menstrual health and hygiene?
Oh, well, thank you for having me over, first of all. Uh, it's a pleasure to speak to like-minded people, and congratulations to you also on your mission. I think we are all trying to solve, different parts of the same puzzle in our own unique way. So I'm Deep. I'm the founder of this organization called Sedona, and the reason why we exist is because women in our part of the world, and for that matter, all over. I'm based in India, face a lot of, I would say, unaddressed intimate and menstrual hygiene issues that have not been, I would say, taken care of for a long, long time. Lifestyle has changed, but many of the products stay the same because of which they suffer. And we are on a mission to solve these problems. So that's what we do. And I mean, to share more, if I were to expand this, we strictly stand for toilet hygiene, intimate hygiene, and menstrual hygiene issues where we have solutions. So, who's the just a simple man trying to solve some problems faced by our customers, who happen to be women in this case.
And I think what I find really interesting is the region that you do your work, right? And I think maybe we can give the guys who are watching and listening at home some idea of the region and the spaces that you guys primarily do your work in.
So, well, there are about 400 million women in India who are above the age of 14, and those are the women we look at as women who are facing these issues. Not all of them might be my customers in this phase of our being. We speak to about 30% of them who are in urban India and who are facing these challenges, right? For instance, toilets. So in other parts of the country, we are still coming up to speed with sanitation facilities. But even in urban India, women who have access to all the products, still when they're traveling on rail, road, metro, often don't find access to clean toilets. And unlike men who can just stand and pee anywhere, women have to wipe the seat or hover or squat, as it's called, or just hold it in. And that's the reason why you get so much of UTIs, because you don't get a urinary tract infection because of a dirty toilet. You get it because you hold the pee for so long, right? So yeah, we came up with India's first stand-in pee device for women called Pee Buddy. So urban that way. Then moved to menstrual hygiene. So menstrual cramps, for example, have always been about hot water bottles and painkillers. We came up with India's first herbal period pain relief patches, menthol and eucalyptus oil based, and started advocating use of sustainable menstrual hygiene products. Because at least in our country, it's a 99% pad dominated market. And while when you look at the other parts of the world, when you have to go for run, swim, jog, they can't do it with a pad on. So it became one of the first ferocious advocates of usage of cups, menstrual cups, which today in our case is used by about 500,000 Indian women. And so yeah, those are the women we are going after. But having said that, I'd say that even in the bottom of the pyramid or the underprivileged we work with as well, because for whichever product we sell, we take out a part of our proceeds and fund our own paid forward campaign. In fact, that is what caught my attention, because our dream is to eradicate period poverty from here. And we were saying that we will be very happy if we can move 1 million women who are not able to afford menstrual products to Sedona menstrual cups at no cost to them. And that's where I read the Million Girls Foundation. And I thought, this is a girl I want to speak to.
Well, I think that is amazing. The fact that you guys have managed to convert, almost, that large amount of women to menstrual cup is an incredible feat, especially when you consider the taboos behind the use of menstrual cups as well, right? We know that in our communities, I don't know if it's the same for you guys in India, but culturally, it is a huge stigma and a huge taboo to use any kind of menstrual hygiene products that are insertable, right? There is a fear of a woman's virginity. There is a fear for her purity. So how did you guys manage this fear? How did you guys manage this huge conversion and getting women comfortable even in their own bodies to say, actually, this doesn't impact me the way I thought it would. I've had the wrong information all along, and I'm going to switch and do this.
I think it's only about having a dialogue around it far more openly than what we are used to. And that's the biggest block. Otherwise, I would say that, let's say for a minute, even if you were to lose your virginity to a cup, would you say that you won't? And if you meet a man who says he won't marry you because you're not a virgin to whoever, even if it's a cup, I would say that that thought in itself is so regressive and repulsive
Yes.
that I think you should anyway stay away from a man like that. So uh, what we are saying is that talk about these issues. These are all myths. You can never lose your virginity to an object. You'll always lose it to the opposite sex. And so there are a lot of unfounded, misfounded information which we are trying to, I would say, address by talking about it far more openly. We come up with webinars, we have videos, and girls today are far more, I would say, empowered
Yes.
because of, I would say, thanks to technology. That today, earlier when somebody gave you that piece of information, you were only as good as your source. Now you have Google at your disposal or other search options, and you can just go and search. And and that's all that we're trying to do here, to say that do not let any lame excuses limit your limitlessness. I mean, the kind of power that I would, not only a cup but any other product in our case, right? I mean, when we talk about even Peabody, which helps women to stand in pee, we were talking about pregnant ladies, the girls who have arthritis, and some of these things we are saying that why do you want to make do with makeshift solutions? If this revolution has to come, it will not be brought by a company or two companies or three companies. It'll be brought in when consumers start knowing what is right for them, and start making those choices. So it's the same for our in our world as well. Menstrual hygiene, intimate hygiene, toilet hygiene, massive taboos, massive. But in urban India, I would say girls are far more empowered than they were, at least in my growing up time. So they are making their choices. You have the solution available for them, girl, they'll go. That's
I
how it
love
is.
that. I love that you're empowering them with choice. And I'm going to get into that. But there was something that you mentioned earlier, and you said to me, with UTIs, and you're mentioning all of these hygiene issues. And I'm actually blown away because you're a man and you know about UTIs. And it is honestly insane to me because I mean, when I look at even, my husband and myself, it took me, I think I was in my late 20s before I understood what a UTI was and what caused a UTI. That was my first experience with a UTI, and I thought I was like dying. I thought something was wrong with me. I had to go to the doctor to check it out, and my doctor almost laughed at me because she was like, "You've never experienced a UTI?" And I said, "I never have." And when she said the word UTI to me, I thought I had done something wrong. I thought maybe I was dirty. I thought maybe. So my point is, I find it so interesting, Deep, that you're so entrenched in the issues of women as a man. I find it so interesting that you have dedicated your life to solutioning for unanswered, these unanswered solutions that women are facing every day. And why is that? Where's the connection? How come you have this deep connection to women issues, and you're finding that it's important to know these issues and work within your community to solve for these issues where you're seeing maybe there aren't any women around who are solving them, right? So what's the connection? Why is this so deep for you? Why is this so deep? Excuse me. But yes, I really want to get into your mind and understand why you were so entrenched in these women-based issues.
I'd say that I think I mean it's no one straight answer. To be very honest with you, be extremely candid. I believe it's not a man versus woman issue. It's just that I've done a couple of businesses before this, and I was just a sales guy trying to sell a solution, right? So when I started with events, I was selling events to men and women. Then I got into handmade carpets with my wife, and I was selling carpets for hotels and high residences. Then again, on a road trip, the idea for Peabody was born. And I thought, well, yeah, there is my audience has the solution, has this problem, and I would like to just offer it as a solution. So personally, I don't see it as a man versus woman issue. And whenever I've been asked that question, I just say, see, I'm also half woman, right? You're a half man. So I think that half side of me comes out because I've seen, I'm luckily blessed with two daughters and one wife, and one mother. So when you look at them at home, uh, you can, I mean, just basic, if you just observe, I mean, I'd say that growing up, maybe you're not observing all these things as much because, these discussions are not spoken way too often. It's not a, dinner table discussion. Like your mother would never come in and say, I've got UTI, between man and wife. So I'd say for the longest time, it didn't really occur me. It started occurring to me, I'd say, when when I started working, started having female friends, and when they would share their things, right? I mean, I have my period on, or I'm on my period and I can't come dancing, or I can't go
Yes.
out, or I can't work. Those sort of things became like a regular feature, so it became normal. Then during events, I realized that when we were doing these large-scale concerts, keeping those washrooms clean was
Yeah.
an issue. So it became more of a problem to solve as a service provider to an audience. During pregnancy, unfortunately, in our case, we lost our first pregnancy to a UTI, so it was traumatic. Uh,
Yeah.
so I'd seen up close and personal how big a nuisance it is, and obviously the suffering that a girl goes through when she's on UTI. 3 months gone, so many medications and whatnot. While for men, we can just drink water, have beer, and it's easier for men.
Yeah.
And my mother had arthritis. So for me, all these things were playing out in the background. So I'd say it's more than me picking the category; it's the category that picked me. And as the joke goes, I keep saying that my parents knew it that I'll be in the business of peeing at least because I started with Peabody first. That's
Yeah.
why they named me Deep. If you spell it backwards, it becomes speed. So I think my parents knew it when I was born that this boy is going to be in the pee and the poop and the period business.
But
So
I
I would
love
say,
that. I love that you're saying it's not even just a man issue. This is a problem, and you are solutioning for a problem. It was something that was consistent. It was a consistent kind of noise and need in your life, and you just felt the need as a salesperson and an inventor to resolve this. I do want to say we're so sorry for your loss, your first pregnancy. I can imagine how traumatic that experience was. And you've been working so long, hands in these issues, and changed from your friends, I'm sure, to what you've seen going on with your wife and with the girls and the women and the young girls that you've actually managed to help and throughout your company and your foundation. In that time, what are some of the major taboos or stigmas to menstrual health that you are finding or seeing, whether it's in your region? I don't know, perhaps if you guys have done work outside of India as well, but maybe you can tell
yeah.
us a little bit about that. But what are some of the biggest taboos and challenges that you find you're facing?
Well, I would say it's more around mindset, and unfortunately, it's not really the women. Women are still. So I'll tell
Yeah,
you, there are two categories. One, if I may call it, for the lack of right words, let's say they're the haves and the have-nots.
yeah,
And let's say the have-nots right now would be the ones who from the bottom of the pyramid, the underprivileged, who don't have access to products. So for them, a product like a Sirona menstrual cup or any menstrual cup for that matter, when you talk to them, you're not really trying to give them a luxury. You're just telling them that, hey, when you have to go around your daily work, what this is a problem. Period for them is a problem. Even between husband and wife, it is not discussed. They're using cloth, rock,
yeah,
rags, and whatnot. In whenever they're down or whenever they have the period on. So they are far more open the minute they know about it and they have the access to it. It's about, even if it's a couple of dollars, somebody has to, for them, if your everyday income is that much, you can't spend it on a cup, right?
yeah,
So, or on any other product for that matter. So for them, it is more of an enabler. So they are far more open. It is usually, I would say, that in urban India, where because it's a choice, it's a luxury, and I'm okay with the solution that I'm using right now, where we have to do far more convincing. Because when we say that pad will take about 500 to 700 years to go away, it's a monthly recurring thing. There are many people who complain of, many women who complain of getting rashes and all of these
yeah,
because of pad. So for them, it's more of a rational conversation, more of a logical conversation, and many of them just bite into it. The guys who have the taboo, it's the taboo is basically with the men. I would say that most of the time I've seen that it's the old school, and because we also as a society have a lot of men who are writing for all these publications, who are leading organizations, and we get to hear their voices more, and in their voices there is in most of the
yeah,
cases there is a baggage that they carry from before. Other than that, I would say customers are very smart here. You can't really sell something to a customer just because you think it is right. She wants it, she'll get it. Otherwise, you can sell her whatever you want, and for all your life, she won't switch. So solution has to work for her, and she herself is willing to move. Taboo and all is in conversations, I would say. And but yeah, at the grassroots level, a lot of work still needs to happen in the villages. In our neighboring countries, I was in Nepal for a menstrual hygiene dialogue, And I heard of such horrendous stories, where during periods girls are not allowed to sleep in the same room. They have cottages
Yes.
outside their huts,
Yeah.
where they sleep and they're bitten and there are 100 things happen to them in those kind of confinements. And so world is and going through a lot. I'd say that we're still very privileged and blessed to
Yeah.
be staying in the countries where we are at and the backgrounds that we've had. On-ground situation is very very challenging because of lack of a dialogue, because of lack of awareness. Education makes a lot of difference.
And I was actually going to ask you that, to say, if you're talking to, and we're seeing a rise right now in motherless households where dads are raising daughters alone, right? They're fortunate if they've got a grandma along there who can also help and who
Yeah.
can sort of guide the conversation and the dialogue. What kind of advice would you give to a father who's in that situation, who's raising daughters by themselves, who's maybe not feeling too comfortable to have that dialogue and to join in that conversation? How do you say to this man, well, you do need to have the conversation because her menstruation is coming, right? Whether you like it or not, whether it's uncomfortable for you or not, her menstruation is coming. She's going to experience a cycle and it's going to be a part of her life for a very long time. And what's your advice to those group of men to say, this is how I suggest you start to have that dialogue. This is how I suggest you start to change your mindset around it.
I would say that, what is one thing that, if you're a boy, who would you call as somebody who was really very close to you among between the parents, whether it was your mother or dad. And that is where I would say one disconnect would always say that, at least for boys, they don't discuss a whole lot of things with their moms. And with girls, they don't discuss a whole lot of things with their dads, at least before. I mean, there's some many personal things which are not really discussed.
Yes.
And I'd say that the least you can do for your child is to give her a fuller parenthood. Just give her both parents 100%. So I think the day we stop making this into this is a mother's discussion and this is a father's discussion, kids would grow up to be double empowered. Like in my case, I would say that my dad was always there to help me, but my mother did fair bit. The only thing was that all the man related issues or boy related issues, I would go run to him and ask.
Yeah.
Imagine if I had two dads or two moms, or both of them were equal. So would you want to be a parent which would do exactly what your parents did? And by the way, our parents did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
They did whatever best they could. But I'm saying, what is it that you will do which what is your signature going to be? So my only request is double up and imagine what kind of empowered kids will be there. So imagine your daughter, if your wife is not reachable and she can have the same exact conversation with you, you're giving her two best friends instead of one and a half.
Yeah.
So whether single father or a single mother, let it not really be about how we've been brought up, because there have been issues or some issues on that front. Let it be something that we change, and just give your kids two best friends instead of one is the best way to look at it.
I loved everything about that answer. I loved the double up. I loved the fact that you said we need to stop parenting like there is a mother's discussion and there is a father's discussion. And I will be very honest with you. My husband and I, when you are parents, our eldest is 4 and our youngest is 2, and she's the little girl. And we have both been quite nervous in having those conversations. We're already preparing ourselves, right? My husband is talking to me about having the conversations with my son about how to help him learn how to pee standing, because that's not my world. So it's been an uncomfortable sort of growth experience for me, raising a boy and listening into the conversations and being forced to participate in those conversations. I mean, he's only 4, so there's still the teen years to. But my husband said to me, I will, if I'm there, I'm going to have the conversation, but you also need to know what's going on in the boy's anatomy. You also need to be comfortable in having the conversation. And the same with my husband, right? With my 2-year-old daughter, I'm constantly trying to plant the seed in his head that there's going to come a day where she's going to go on a period. There's going to come a day when she's going to fall pregnant, where she's going to get married. And we kind of need to prepare ourselves now for those discussions and for those experiences that our kids are having. And I think that is just such a growth mindset. It is just such a, I wouldn't even say modern, but I like the fact that it is you basically think, guys, we need to move away. Yes, our parents did an amazing job, but we need to move away from that old kind of thinking in saying that there's female roles and men roles. That answer just gets me so freaking excited.
Yeah, well, no, thanks. But it's true, right? I mean, what our parents, and the whole reason why we exist here is, if we do only what got us there will not get us there, is a saying, and I'm just saying that we turned out just right.
Yeah,
Now the circumstances around us have changed. The technology has changed. The education has changed. Our circumstances, just with respect to whatever we can afford more than what our parents could afford, and
yeah,
and that's why our kids would go to different circles. So that's what I believe, that if as parents you can have dialogue, and don't think that we are here forever. I think it's not about, so I need to become a better mother from right now itself. Tomorrow, heavens forbid, if anything happens to either of us,
yeah.
the other parent will have to grow up overnight. So rather than being in a situation where you're thrown against the door or against the wall and then you grow up, might as well have those conversations right now. And nothing better than giving your kids two best friends. So if your philosophy can be that, what is a best friend? Right? You can discuss everything and anything under the sun. So, and we need to just give. I mean, that's the least. Just give them those
Yeah.
two best friends. That's the least that they deserve.
I wanted to ask you now. I know you've mentioned before that, you know what, this really isn't or it shouldn't be like a man issue. It shouldn't be a woman issue. But because you are a man, and I think your voice, having your voice in this issue is so important to give us perspective as well. But not just that, to really show us that this issue is an all of us issue, right? And that we can all solve it. But specifically now talking to young men that are watching this, boys that might be watching this coming up, what advice would you give them to say, you know what, guys, this is an environment that we're living in, and perhaps they are now activated. Perhaps they didn't know about menstrual health and hygiene before, and now they're inspired by you and your footsteps and the journey that you're taking. What advice would you give them to start that journey and to start being more active in this space, to start having more social activism? What are the little changes that they can do right now where they're sitting, to create a more sort of period positive world?
Well, I would say that don't look at it as any agenda, but if your heart beats to make a difference to the world, then don't stop at just being ordinary. That's the only request that I have. Don't follow then the herd, because the herd mentality says that you as a boy should be doing X, Y, Z, etc., and you as a girl
Yeah,
should be doing X, Y, Z, and etc. That definition was by people who've not lived your life. So all of us have some charisma, have something special over the other. So if your heart beats to say that I want to make a difference, then don't listen to the naysayers. Just go and do it, no matter what the field is. Period poverty, women right, equal rights, pets, whatever gets your heart to beat. Just do what your calling is, and do a little more. The whole philosophy is to do a little more. Like in our case, also as a company, we just say that we are solving problems, and so are 100,000 people, other people. What else can we do? What can we leave that one little more value addition? Just that one little more that makes this process a little better than how we found it. I think whose word was it that you should leave the world in a better position than you found it. So that's our philosophy. Just stay away from naysayers and energy vampires.
absolutely. I love that so much. Essentially, just get to it. Just start doing it. Just have
And
the
do a little more.
and do and do a little more. So don't just start
That's all.
doing, but do a little bit more. And Deep, I want to take you back now to the work that you guys are doing in Choice, but also you gave us an amazing number at the beginning, and I think that number, you'll correct me, was 500,000 girls converted to the use of menstrual cups. I want to talk about that now in terms of what are some of the consequences, positive consequences, negative consequences. You
Yeah.
have obviously seen them in a state before they
Yeah.
were using menstrual cups, and then you have, I assume you've been following up and
Yeah.
you've seen now the
Yeah. Yeah.
experience with
Yeah.
menstrual cups. What does that look like? What does the before and after look like for them? In particular now, as we're talking, because our campaign is all about trying to keep girls in school. What did you
Absolutely.
see the consequence of that, of girls missing school, and how has that changed their schooling experience?
I'd say one of okay. So let's break into two parts. One is for an urban Indian woman, or for
Yeah,
an urban working upwardly mobile woman, and one from again an underprivileged sort of a background. And the changes we've seen. So I think for the first time again, when the problem was like brought to the forefront in its gravity was, I would say 4 years ago when we said that this needs to be turned on its head, and this was one of the videos that was shared with me during one of these events of the situation in Malawi where girls were dropping out of school, which is happening here as well. But before that, the only obvious answer that came to my mind was, well, they're dropping out of schools because of lack of menstrual products. Give them menstrual products and solve it, right? Nobody. I had never thought of the other impacts of it, which this particular documentary opened up for me. And what it showed was that, even if you give them the pad, right now, the issue is most of the girls don't have undergarments. So what do they rest the pads on? It was that fundamental level. And that's where some of these things come to hit you so hard to say, one thing is just to do a crowdfunding and give some of the pads. And it's another thing to know that what you're giving, is it even of use? So two broad issues came out of that particular documentary. One is they don't have the means to even wear whatever you're giving them. And second is you can give them once, twice, thrice, for how long? So there needs to be a far more sustainable solution. So with the underprivileged community we worked with traffic sex workers, we worked with policewomen, who are on duty and who also face a lot of challenges. And we work with a lot of other smaller, sub communities from the villages of India, where we moved them to the cups. And I think the shift that we saw was very happy faces, because now girls, not even the younger ones, but even the ones, their mothers. So earlier, mothers were reluctant to say, well, how will she insert something? Then she started using it. After 3 months, we started getting requests from the moms who said, I am able to get around my day so much better. I don't know if there's anything inside me. And it's so easy to maintain. I can just keep it in my bag. So they can go back to their hiding stuff, right? But now they're far more empowered. So we saw them save money because they were wasting money on whatever else they were doing. We saw they were able to give far more hours to their work without getting, under the interruption. There were no spotting. There was no issues. This is what we saw on the rules. It was far more, I would say, encouraging. It was far more satisfying. And that's the reason this Million Women, I would say, project was conceptualized. Yeah, and in urban India, it was more around those three basic things. One is, you when you are trying to have an active lifestyle, running, swimming, jogging, going for your work. Many women get chafing because of pants. So there, it was more of a problem solution approach that we took. Difference has been very good. Yeah, we have, like I said, we have 500,000 Indian women right now. So the testimonials that we get are fantastic. Right from there are many women who brought out the environmental aspect of it, that they feel less, or I would say they feel better about not really contributing to the sanitary waste. The women who brought out the whole financial angle also, even if it's small money, but it's more about saying that at least I'm not wasting. And third is more about just the physical comfort that they have. So I've seen a lot of change, and I would say that just feel good that you're able to bring out products that are making a difference.
I wanted to touch on something you said, because that actually blew my mind, right? And there's so many initiatives out there that are doing this, that are trying to make a positive impact in a girl's life. We are surely not the first ones, and we will not be the last ones. There are amazing foundations out there that are doing this. And it's an every month drive, right? It's every month we do a drive. And I think giving any girl choice is still important. You also mentioned that. It's also the power of choice to choose what type of products that you want to use. But it's important that we start introducing solutions that are sustainable, solutions that are more permanent, solutions that are long-term as well, into the choice, right? Into the choice. And, when you said to me that it's like, think about what it is you're giving. How can you give a girl a pad if she doesn't have any undergarments to even place it in? And I think some of us, we know poverty, but we don't know poverty like that. I mean, my family, that my parents worked extremely hard to get us out of poverty, but I have never gone to sleep hungry. I've always had undergarments. I have always had access to education, and I've always had access to menstrual hygiene products. So this foundation for me touched me because I'm like, I don't understand how there can be any other girls who haven't had this type of privilege, but that level of underprivilege I haven't seen. And I think that is heartbreaking, but I'm glad and I'm optimistic that there are people like you and that we're starting to see a more sustainable solution and a healthier solution. I kind of want to call it period freedom. And I don't know how you feel about that. I think it's regardless of the kind of choice you're giving, but just saying we want you to have a free life, like you mentioned, an active life that's not interrupted by you going on your cycle. You shouldn't not be able to go to school because you're on your cycle.
Absolutely.
You shouldn't miss work because you're on your cycle. You shouldn't miss the party or going for a swim because you're on your cycle. And I think that you are doing absolutely amazing work in the space, Deep. You are absolutely inspiring. Before we go,
Just too kind. You're just too kind. Just if I may add to that, no, in urban India, that's precisely what we say. So when we started, so globally, there are 4 products that are available for a girl to use during her periods, at least in the urban setting.
Yeah.
There's a pad, there's a tampon, there's a cup, and there's a panty liner. We said all 4 should be available, and let my girls then decide what do they want.
Yes.
Like even in pads, we said, why are pads only white? Why can't they be biodegradable? So it's not that we didn't bring them. We also got the pads, but they were biodegradable. We introduced colors. So in fact, we came with India's first colored pads. We came with black and pink to say, why white? So by the time my girls grow up, I don't want a whip cure of colors, right? So you pick whichever you want on the day, depending on the colors. It has to be celebrated. It shouldn't be something which puts her on. There is already so much happening in her life, right? I mean, in the sense, the dialogue, the whole changes in your body are anyways happening. So yes, so to finish that, that's precisely what we say, that we are nobody to say pads are bad. I am saying let the choice be with her. And in the rural parts of the country, we are saying, let's give them stuff which tomorrow we won't blame ourselves for, when it comes to any sort of environmental disaster. So if you're educating them, back in the days, I'd say 20, 25 years ago when pads started to get into the country, maybe tampons back then was way ahead of its time. Today, I mean, you know what all solutions are there. So when you're taking the solutions to the other remote parts of the country, give them the product that makes the most sense. Now you know that cups exist. Not our cups, could be anybody's cups. But give them the product which is far more empowering than what you know. Like I said, do a little more. And anything that you're starting, the question is, what is our value add that we will do to this project? So for rural, menstrual ready, period poverty, period happiness, period freedom, whatever we want to call it, give them the product that goes that mile and does a bit. In urban as well, our girls might have pads with wings, extra wings, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. I don't know what all will they put on the pads. But can you add more options to her repertoire so that, the choice is hers. So I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, basically.
I love it. Give her the choice. Create period freedom for her and allow her to experience it in a way that makes sense to her as well, that is sustainable, that is healthy, that's not going to make her sick, and that is also easy to use. Deep, I think with that, before we close off, I do want to ask you one last question, and that is, how can anybody who is watching today, who resonates with what you guys are doing, who maybe wants to even get a hold of your products, how can they get a hold of you? Please do mention your social media handles, but I'll also be sure to include them whenever we upload this link. But please do go ahead and let us know.
No, sure. Well, I'm Deep Bajaj, DEEPBAJAJ. That's my name. I'm on LinkedIn by that name. I'm on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram by Bajaj Deep, if I'm not wrong. But that's how I am. More than happy to answer any questions. If you are somebody who wants to, talk about sustainable menstruation in your pockets, please let me know. We'll be happy to share whatever material we have, whether it's the videos or the webinars. We are happy to help. And we don't want anything in return for that, because you're already doing your bit in trying to eradicate this. So yeah, that's where I am, and I'm at deepbajaj@gmail.com. That's my email address. So that's how you can find me.
Thank you so much, guys. This was an absolutely informative, wonderful conversation that I've just had with Deep, and we are looking forward to hosting you again. Hopefully, we'll just keep coming back and coming back. That was an amazing discussion. Thank you so much, Deep, for just giving us insights into menstrual health and hygiene. And most importantly, I think for me, my takeaway with the conversation with you is, give a woman choice, give her sustainable options. Let's educate our community so that we're having double parenting, not just mom duties, not just dad duties, but let us all join in on the conversation, because this is not just a woman issue. This is actually an our issue. With that, Deep, I say
100%.
thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you for watching this episode of our series, The Voice of Champions. If you also want to make an impact and become a Million Girls Champion, then visit our website at amilliongirlsfoundation.org and help us keep a million girls in school.